Jocelyn here. I am actually here with Natalie today, and she's going to talk to us about some marketing and logo tips. We're so happy to have her with us. And she's from Nilla Bean Company, and she's also a freelance designer. So she's going to talk to us a little bit about logo design and marketing design today. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you, Natalie.
Hi. So obviously I'm Natalie Duncan, and my business is Nilla Bean, but I have been a graphic designer for probably, I'm like, how old am I this year? I've probably been doing it for like ever. I feel like I started when it was like playing Neopets. I don't know if you ever played that when you were a kid. Yeah. So I started with like web design and doing design with that. And then it went on to MySpace. You have to design your MySpace layout. And I just really fell in love with design and took design classes in high school. And, when I started at school, like college, I started with psychology, and my academic advisor was like, why are you not going for design? And I'm like, it's just a hobby, But I only took a couple semesters of psychology, moved on to graphic design, and so that was my first real love, and I love it so much. I'm really passionate about it. I'm by no means an expert in all of it, but I enjoy it, and I like to be able to help other businesses and people with learning the basics of design and what makes a design good for them. So yeah.
So are you currently working, or is like your Nilla Bean your full-time job now, or?
Yeah, so I actually worked for a company for a few years before this that focused on like bedding and window stuff. So I did a lot of packaging designs for them, and it was just not a good work environment. So I left them, I want to say it was like last year around this time, and I was like, let me start up something new. So I started with wax melts, actually. So I kind of like launched that, right? Like my first like opening day was April 1st, right when like quarantine and everything was happening. And I'm like, this could go really bad or it could go really good. So yeah, I'm doing that now full time.
And have you been enjoying it? How's business been with the whole COVID thing? And
it's been amazing. I feel like if I would have launched and it wasn't a quarantine, it probably wouldn't be going as well as it's going, because everyone is at home, and you want your house to smell nice when you're in it all day long. So,
yeah, I agree for sure.
Yeah, so it's been going great. I'm super busy, and I'm so thankful for it, honestly. Like, there's so many negative things about everything that's been happening in 2020, but there's also been a lot of positives to it, and I think it's hard to see that when we're like stuck right in the middle of it. But
I 100% agree.
It's been good though.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to hear what tips you have. I have my notebook ready. I'm ready to go. So, we can go ahead and start, and I might interject with some questions, but so happy to have you. So thanks.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely suggest anyone watching to grab a pencil and paper or something, just making notes, because I feel like I'm like that. I like to make quick notes when things are happening like that to reference later. But I think it would make the most sense to start with branding versus brand identity. But I think it is also important to kind of like make the connection of what a brand is, what logo designing is, and how they kind of like work together, as well as with your marketing and everything else. So I would say that a brand or branding is sort of like the personality of your business, what your customers' experience is like when they shop with you and are using your website. I would say that because people are most often buying your products based off of their perceived value versus what their actual value is, this is very important to kind of like make sure you're setting yourself up for success and making sure that you are targeting the right kind of customer that you want. So I think that it's important, first of all, to figure out what your brand is going to be and who you want to be selling to, because otherwise everything else that you're doing isn't going to matter. It's not going to be working for you unless you figure that out first.
Yeah, like your demographic is everything. I'm still having I'm not personally having a struggle, but I think my mom is having more of a struggle than I am because I'm doing like a Lux line and she's like, people will really pay that for a candle. I'm like, yeah, but you're not my demographic, mom.
Yeah.
Like, really, you need to like, and everything, my brand has to stay consistent. So I'm trying to elevate everything. So
yeah, exactly. It's like some people I see it a lot in candle groups where people are like upset because they have family members or something that are like, this is too much. This is too much. Like, don't listen to that because they may not be your customer. And so you need to figure out who you want your customer to be. And I know for like my brand, I set it up as basically like, I want to sell to myself, which I think is common for people who are, you know, small business owners and they're not a big corporation where it's a bunch of people who have a say in your brand. But like for mine, I want to sell to someone that's like me, you know, a 30-year-old woman who buys things based off of what their packaging looks like. So I want to target myself, and that's a part of my brand's personality, is my own personality. So it's important to figure this stuff out first. So then that way you can design your logo based off of who you're selling to, because it makes a huge difference. You're not going to be selling to the same person necessarily. Like if you have your target customer is a dad who likes to be outdoors, hunts, fishes, is really sarcastic, that is going to look totally different.
You're my brand.
Than like selling to a 65-year-old woman who only shops at, you know, high-end luxury stores. They aren't going to look the same. And you're setting yourself up for failure if you are trying to sell to anyone and everyone. That's not possible. By trying to sell to everyone, you're not going to be able to sell to anyone because there's just other things for them to choose from that speaks to them. So it's really important to figure that stuff out.
Yep. So tip 1 is just figure out your demographic. Who do you want to?
Exactly. Like it's huge. That is the most important thing you can do for your business. Oh, and this goes with the logo design because that is your brand's identity, what the face of your brand is. So if your brand is the personality, your brand identity is the face. When you meet someone for the first time, you're not getting to know their personality immediately. You're seeing their face. So you need to make sure that the face of your company reflects that personality of your company.
So that's why for like Instagram, especially Instagram, because it's a very visual platform, you want to stay consistent with your demographic and what they like to see as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like number one thing I think for your business is to make sure that you have consistency first and foremost. Like consistency. It's hard to say that. Say it 3 times fast.
Yeah, it really is.
Yes, it matters. Even I still struggle with that and making sure that I'm consistent with things and like keeping things looking cohesive, but it matters and it makes a difference because you're building consistency is building trust with your customers. They know what to expect when they're looking at this. These kind of are going hand in hand together, making sure your face is reflecting the personality, brand identity is your logos, your photos, all like, you know, labels, all of that brand identity with your brand. I guess you can kind of achieve it by your fonts and your colors with the logo design. So I know with Canva, it makes it easy for anyone to create a logo design.
I love Canva.
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
It really is. It's so helpful. mean, as a designer, like, it's kind of like, wow, it's stealing my jobs, but it's really not. It's not at all. I see that a lot.
Yeah, some people just don't have the vision to put things together. So as
Yeah.
much as Canva is useful, like I use Canva just to create like Instagram and Facebook content too, not just for logos. So
yeah, for sure. It's such a great resource. It really is. At least it's a good place to kind of like piece ideas together if you're not really sure what you're doing or what you want to do. It's even helpful if you kind of want to piece something together, and if you need a professional to kind of help you tweak it or make the design more unique in some way. I think it's a good way to also start with just kind of getting a baseline for like a general look. You know, you don't have to like completely use it.
yeah, I agree.
Product.
And if you're using like someone like you that really caters to this, and I don't know, for me, it would be good to be like, hey, this is my inspiration. This is something I want to do, and then send it over to you so you have an idea of what that customer is going for versus just being like, okay, let me just make something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I am, I will say this a million times, I'm very visual. And so when I have clients coming to me about something, I need to get a feel for what you want with like photos or mood boards or anything like that, because it's kind of hard to like pull something out of thin air and read someone else's mind. It's good to like have an idea of what's going on and having that dialogue with it. But so Canva is great for something like that, especially.
And that's a great suggestion too, just using Pinterest. I know I did that for a while. I was just like, okay, let me get some inspiration so that I can figure out what I really want to do. So I was just looking at what other people did before me. So that's great tip for sure.
Yeah, that's also what I did. I mean, I use Pinterest so much for stuff like that. Just, you don't even have to be looking for candle labels. Like when I was looking for inspiration for my brand, I was looking at food and ice cream packaging, because those kind of gave off the like playful vibes that I was looking for. So you don't have to be like looking for candle specific things. It's just looking for things that inspire you. And I also, when I am trying to like design a logo for someone, especially in like with candles or something like that, I ask for them to choose between different rooms and like tell me which room you see your candle in. So then that way I can kind of get a feel for who their target audience is if they aren't really sure. So
that's a really cool idea. I actually really like that.
Yeah, I found that to be really helpful when I started doing that. It's been a couple months now when I started it. I was like, I need a better way to kind of figure out what someone wants. So let me have them choose a living room.
Yeah,
it ended up working really well. It's actually very helpful. But
I totally agree with like just drawing inspiration from other things. For me, I'm doing a hang tag on mine because it's like an extra on the outside, so a label won't fit. And I've been looking at clothing lines, just looking at their hang tags, because there's not a lot of what I'm looking for a candle kind of hang tag design. So and even packaging, I'm looking at other things too, like you just said. So because I want to be like, I want to create an experience. I don't want it to just be the candle. I want it to be the packaging too. So we have that.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, when I was working at my old job, we would specifically go and shop, but like look around at other packaging and other, like get inspiration from other things like clothes and, you know, shoes, kitchen supplies. You don't have to look at things that are candle specific. Right. You can kind of expand out and find something that's unique for your business that way. So you don't have to do what everyone else is doing to be successful.
Absolutely. So for logos and fonts and things, are there any like tips or good fonts that you suggest or?
Yeah, for sure. So I think really making your design successful starts with fonts and colors. Your logo should be simple. It should be memorable, adaptable, and legible.
Yeah, there you go.
So less is always more with design. Keep your designs as simple as you can. No more than like 2 to 3 fonts and colors. And if you're wondering why, just take a second and think about some different companies you know of, like Target, Google, Macy's, Apple. I mean, pretty much anything. You can picture those logos in your mind right now. And why is that? Because they're simple, they're easy to remember, and your customers getting like one look at your packaging or whatever else, they need to be able to commit it to memory. And it's hard to remember logos and things when there's a lot going on. Sometimes people think they need to put everything into their logo, and you don't. Really, the most successful logos are simple ones because people remember them.
That's actually a really great tip, because right now when you said that, I'm like thinking of, I'm like, okay, Nike, the check mark, like Macy's is what, the star, Target's just the Target. So you're exactly right. Like, it's just like I'm drinking McDonald's and what? I just got.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yes, they've built up, like, even some of these companies, they've made tweaks to their logos, but like their general logo has stayed the same for years and years and years for a lot of these places. And it's okay to make tweaks to your design, but they've kept it still consistent with their original sort of brand. They've just kind of evolved a little bit, but they're simple. Yeah, exactly. And you can do that with your business and your logo and all that sort of stuff, but keep it consistent so people still know what to expect. So yeah, that's like my biggest, I think, tip for logo designing. I will shout it from the mountaintops. Keep your logo design simple.
Yeah. And you show us your logo design?
Yeah. It's right here, but it's going to be backwards. So I have it like super, super tiny on here.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It's just my name with like a little vanilla flower. And then I can change up the color on all my packaging. I can find other ways to like make it fun without having to be like all this stuff everywhere on it. I think that's like my biggest pet peeve when I'm like designing for other people, because they want to like, let me put this, and I'm like, stop.
Well, see, that's kind of what I was having, because I originally created my logo based off what I thought my product was going to look like in my head.
Yeah.
And this was months ago. So like my logo design is lips, because I always wear lipstick. So it's bright lips, and it says retro glow across it. And I'm like, this fits me perfectly, because it fits me and my brand. But now my brand has kind of evolved a different way. And I'm like, how do I take this same logo that I have and love that I feel like describes me? And now I'm doing like my brand's called Retro Glow. So it's retro in any way. Yeah. So I'm doing a 1930s like jazz speakeasy theme. So I'm trying to take the lips, and I think I got it down. I can't wait to show you, but I think Great Gatsby now, but still have the same exact feel. So when I create another line, I could still use the lips, just change the color or something on them. Yeah. So kind of what you're doing.
Exactly. I think that's like a really cool way to be able to like give some more personality to your logo design without adding more stuff to it, because it can start to look really cluttered and messy when you're thinking like, oh, I need to have this and this and this and this and this and all this stuff on there. And it's just less is more. Less is always more for that. And
do you watch Project Runway by any chance?
Not really.
Oh, okay. Because they design all this clothes, and they always, like, Tim Gunn comes out and he always tells you like, edit. Yeah. I've noticed that with myself. Like, I get so many ideas, but I have to write it down. Like, I need to edit down because I have too many ideas. It'll look like crazy.
Yes. And I actually have designed for a couple people before in candle groups that, I like talked to them. I'm like, you're doing too much on this. And they're like, let's just go for it. And then a couple weeks later, I see them like, well, I kind of needed to pare this down because I did way too much on it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I tried to tell you, and I have to do what you want me to do, but I'm trying to explain like my reasoning behind why it should be more simple. And sometimes people just want it to be a lot, and that's fine if that's what your brand is, but usually that's not what people's brand is, you know? So you kind of need to, again, know what you're getting into before designing. And then so that way you can feel confident between the options and what's going to work with your brand. So it's great.
That's great advice. Now, are there any colors that you think are more eye-catching to the eye? I've been like, ooh, does this color more go to someone's eye, or does this? I always play around with colors, or even fonts, because some fonts are so overdone now.
So that's like one of the bad things I think about Canva. You see the same sort of fonts and stuff over and over again if you're not able to expand outside of just the free version of it. So it's good, but it's also got some negatives to it. And there are a lot of fonts that are overdone, but that's how it is. It's like trends.
Yeah, and there's a lot of templates that are already used. Try to be creative and not use the templates, because you can spot them. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that was a Canva template.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found a way, because I do pay $14 a month for the Canva, but I did find, like, going to other websites, and they let you download their fonts, and then you could download that font straight to Canva, so you can have some different kinds of fonts. So
yes. I would highly recommend that. If you are like dead set on designing all of your materials and all of that, I really think it's worth it to invest in the pro version, because of that very reason. You can download other fonts and install them in there, and you're not using the same fonts that, you know, thousands of other people are using. And especially, like you said, with the templates, like, you can start with a template, but change it. Getting back to your actual question about colors and fonts. So let's talk fonts first. Ideally, your logo will have no more than 2 fonts to it. 3 should be the very, 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 very maximum. I would say that if you feel like that's limiting to you, play with the weights of the fonts. So you can have a thin and a bold, or doing the italics or whatever else. That can change up your logo a ton, and you won't have more fonts in there. So more fonts, again, makes it more messy, more visually cluttered. The more going on, the less your customer's eye is going to be able to focus on something. You know, there's just too much going on. So paring it down is very, very helpful. There are also different types of fonts to choose from. So we have serifs, which are the fonts like Times New Roman that have the little like feet on them. You know, kind of see that mostly in like books and everything, because the feet actually make it easier for your eyes to read. So that's why people use serifs most often in books.
That makes sense.
So typically those fonts are seen as more traditional, more serious, a little bit more of like luxury or high-end, reliable. These are all kinds of things. There's psychology to fonts and colors. So using these kind of fonts will change up the way that your customer might see your brand. So if you want to be seen as a reliable, serious business, your luxury, serif's probably the way to go for looking for different fonts. Let's see. Sans serif is fonts like Arial that don't have the feet on them. These are typically seen as clean, modern, more universal. These are, I would say, definitely with the cleanness of it, so they don't have the feet on them. It kind of just gives a different vibe to your company. So if you're feeling more modern, I would look at sans serif fonts for sure. Slab serif, which again, they have the feet on them, but they're like the chunkier ones. They're the more playful ones. So like my logo, I use a slab serif because so like mine
below, so you guys can go and
yeah. I decided to use a slab serif because I wanted something that was playful and fun and just, a little bit different. So those are modern, bold, that sort of thing. Scripts are cursive fonts. Those are typically seen as feminine, creative, or friendly. Handwritten fonts are super popular now. I personally love handwritten.
Me too.
Looks just stuff.
I just get nervous because some of them I'm like, oh, I love this font. But then the way it's laid out, I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be legible for some people.
Yeah, exactly. That's like another one of my points with like having a successful logo design is you want it to be legible. You want people to be able to read it. So these are obviously seen as modern, laid back, unique, all that sort of stuff. So you can also do font pairing, which I would encourage everyone to look up on like Pinterest or whatever else. It's hard to say like, oh, these fonts would look great together off the top of my head because there's just so many things to choose from. But I would say things to look for are like doing a bold font with a thin font, or using a sans serif with like the serif down underneath it with like the wide spacing between the letters. You see that a lot. Doing things like that and pairing scripts with serifs or whatever else. I would encourage people to look that up as well to kind of see what goes well together. I do see people a lot of times putting two different fonts together. That should not go together. They don't give the same vibe. They're in two different places. They don't belong together. So I would definitely look into that. Then the next step to, design your logo is color. But I always say to start with black and white, because you never know if someone is going to need your logo in just black or white or whatever. Say a newspaper is like, hey, we want to put your business in here, black and white only.
Yeah.
What are you going to do if you can't provide it? You've like lost an opportunity. Or if someone's like, oh, I need to print this out with your logo on it, what's it going to look like when they print it?
Question for you, hopefully. On Canva, when I'm designing my logos, is it best to put it in like the logo formatting to do it, or is it better to do it in a different format?
I always would encourage people to design logos as large as they can, because especially if you're using something like Canva or Photoshop, because the largest size you make your logo is as big as it can go. And you can make it smaller, but you can't ever make it bigger without losing the quality.
Okay.
If you want to be able to scale your logo as much as you want, you will want to use a vector-based program like Adobe Illustrator.
Okay.
So you'll be able to blow it up as big as you want. You could put it on a billboard. But you can't do that with like raster or pixel-based programs like Photoshop. So these things are important to keep in mind. Make sure you design your logo pretty large if you're going to design it in Canva. But just keeping in mind what applications you're going to be using your logo on. And this also comes with making it simple, because if you're scaling your logo down, if you have a lot going on, a full face, all this sort of stuff, and you scale it down to an inch or smaller, think about what it's going to look like. I would suggest printing it out and seeing like what kind of detail is there and making sure that it still looks right, because I've seen a lot of that stuff too, where people are like putting in faces and candles with faces and doing these things, but if they scale it down and they're putting on this little teeny tiny label, it's not going to look right. But for color, starting in black and white is always super important, making sure that everything looks right when it's in black and white, and then going into color after that, I feel like kind of sets you up for more success in the long run. And color psychology is super important. It's very real. If you look it up on Pinterest or anything else, you'll see a lot of, like, I've seen like rainbows of logos where it's like, okay, here's like a lot of gas stations use green and stuff like this. You'll see.
It's funny you say this. Yeah, I took some marketing classes, and they're like, the reason why McDonald's used to do red and yellow was because red ensues hunger.
Yeah.
So that's why they say like never paint your kitchen red, because you're always walking in there and like trying to munch on everything. So it makes sense. People see red, like, oh, let me get something to eat. So it is so much a psychology that you're not even kidding.
Yeah, it really is, and you don't realize it. So it's like colors can invoke certain feelings into your customers. Red, a lot of times, like you said, there's hunger with that, but there's also passion, bold, strength. Yeah, orange is like confidence, energy, fun. Yellow is more youthful or optimistic or playful. Green is a lot of wellness, growth, healing, that sort of thing. Blue is more tranquil, integrity, knowledge. Purple is wisdom, royalty, creativity. Gray, glamour, balance, a lot of tech. This one's a very neutral one. You could probably use it for pretty much anything and it would be good. Gray is great for that. Yeah. Brown, natural, friendly, earthy. Gold, traditional, wealth, prosperity. Black is modern, stylish, and classic.
Yep.
Pink is feminine, sweet, and nurturing, of course. Like white, again, the same sort of thing, modern, stylish, that sort of kind of stuff. All these things sort of matter with, again, your brand's identity, and you can always break the rules with it. No one says that your company will only be traditional or serious if you use a serif font. You can change it up and make it what works for you, but it's important to know the rules before you break them.
There you go. There you go. I like that.
Yeah, that was definitely something that was like pounded into us in design, like taking classes for design. Like you have to know the rules before you can break them. So it's important to know kind of, it's good reference points at least. And so now that you have like an idea of the fonts you want to use or might want to use, or the colors you might want to use, this is the time to start like what we talked about, doing a mood board, grabbing things that inspire you, photos, whatever else, and start piecing together your brand's face that way.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. I'm always available if people want feedback or something on logo design. So awesome. I really love it.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Natalie. I'm going to post your information to Nilla Bean below. If you guys enjoyed this video, we'd love to have Natalie back, maybe talk about some other marketing tips and stuff like that. And if you haven't become a member of the Facebook Sluts community, go ahead and click that link below. Bunch of great makers in that community, and we just continue to support and help each other. So, Natalie, I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.